Hello and welcome to our University of South Wales Time to Talk Day, where we'll be talking to a few guests and a panel members about the importance of tackling the stigma of mental health. We'll be touching on a few subjects, including some positive stories of bounce backs in the sporting world. I'm joined by a number of my course mates here. First of all, we got Adam Evans. Adam, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Not too bad, yeah.
What sort of stuff will we be bringing up today?
So we've got a conversation with Wayne Jones, who's the manager of Haverfordwest. He's a mental health worker at the NHS, and we'll be talking to him about exactly how his work in the health service can help the players and staff of Haverfordwest Football Club. And then we also have another guest, which is Simon Thomas, who's a rugby journalist for Wales Online, who's he's battled with cancer in the past, and he's got a great story to tell about how he's bounced back from that.
And how important is Time to Talk Day for you, and the importance of talking about mental health and tackling that stigma?
Well, Time to Talk Day is massive. Mental health in the current scheme of things, especially during the whole situation surrounding coronavirus, people are probably suffering more than they would originally. So for it to fall at the time it has, when people probably are in need of help more than any time that has been in the past, probably. It's massive, really.
Lovely stuff. Now we go over to Barbara, who will introduce the first guest.
So as first, we will take a look at the interview with Wayne Jones, our classmate, Dafydd.
Just like to start off by asking about your job with the NHS as a mental health worker. What exactly does your job sort of entail on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I work for obviously my hometown mental health team, Carmarthen. So I work for Haverfordwest NHS Trust, and obviously my role is a community mental health support worker. So I support in general the qualified nurses, along with the social team, which is Carmarthenshire County Council, and we work together as an integrated community mental health team. So our roles initially are, one, first and foremost, to support clients with mental health problems living in the community independently. And secondly to that then is obviously prevention of admission into hospital, as well as discharge from hospital and follow-up care, and getting our clients settled into the community, you know.
And you touched briefly about your job with Haverfordwest as well, first team manager there. Have you found that the two jobs can sort of overlap with management and man management, understanding sort of what players are going through mentally as well?
Yeah, totally. I think, it's testing times for us all. And, like you said, we're living with this at the moment. Change, I think, is a big problem for people, learning to adapt to different ways and means. But obviously ensuring the safety, I think, of everybody is paramount. But trying to do it in a dignified and professional way, which obviously even in footballing terms, we're doing the same there. Taking into consideration what we do on a day-to-day work basis, taking into football, obviously the risks are still exactly the same. We've highlighted that. We're lucky down in Haverfordwest because we've got a very good medical team there. We've got obviously our club doctor, Richard Thompson, along with our COVID officers, Julie and Mark, as well as Ben Vachuna, our physio. So we all sort of, chip in and adhere to everything there. We follow the protocols. Everything is in place that, is done by the FAW. We follow all that and a little bit over and above, really. We're in the process now that even though we're classed professional due to the X amount of players we've got on contract, we've decided as a club, because we've got a lot of players travelling from different areas of Wales, we don't think, and the league isn't being played at the moment, we don't think it's successful for us to come down and actually train and be together as a group. So that's most probably the best common sense thing we've done over the last month as a team. We've decided that. But again, then going on to my full-time job, it's back to management and regulations there as well, so very testing for us all, but something that we appear to be coping with.
And in football as well, there's plenty of setbacks where players get released by sort of top flight academies, possibly getting injured for a long period of time. How much can that have an effect on a player's mental health?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. You know, I think the psychology side of the game, you know, the things players have to adhere to, you know, the life changes, which is big. You know, suddenly, you know, and we're in the process now. Down with us, we've got players that are on loan with us on a part-time basis, as well as we've got some players who've been released full-time. And I suppose having the psychological willingness to adapt on a day-to-day basis in terms of how their life is, you know, because it is a different life. I mean, you're suddenly an elite professional and you're coming back to being a part-time and having to, people say, live in the real world about it, but it's not like that because, you know, each job to their own. But, you know, having these players and trying to encourage their mindsets about it, having them to adapt even in their own sort of environments then with people who have been on the building site, and, you know, it all has a psychological effect. But again, we tend to, as a team, really manage it fairly well, and I think the players are quite open to admitting that as well.
And in terms of bouncing back from setbacks, I spoke about players getting released and getting injured for quite a while. How important is it for players who are sort of struggling with their mental health to seek help from the likes of the NHS and charities like Mind?
It's massive, and I think, you know, I'm fortunate I work within that setting, and there's so much out there for people that maybe aren't aware. You know, I know, you know, mental health awareness is promoting, and it has been sort of going on a bigger scale over the last few years, more now than ever, due to testing times. But there's a lot of organisations out there, charities, you know, a lot of support peers for people, and it's just raising that awareness, knowing you need to just go and talk to someone, speak to someone, whether it be a family member, a friend, you know. But it's really important that they know there's a bit of security there for them. And I think, you know, full credit to these agencies and private sectors that are doing really well. And again, like you said, it's very testing, even though we've got COVID, but it's having a massive effect psychologically. I mean, as we're witnessing, you know, the backlog of it in my professional career, or my full-time job, I should say, in the mental health team, is that everything has an implication. And, you know, it's maybe sometimes the calm before the storm, but, you know, we're certainly seeing in our workplace at the moment that, you know, it's increasing. Our workloads are increasing due to the COVID and the effects it's had with people's livelihoods and health reasons and everything. So it's, you know, as an NHS, we're all full hands to the pump, and massive credit to Frontline who are, you know, tackling it day in, day out. But again, it peers back then to obviously secondary care and, you know, even the private care sectors that are working extremely hard to sort of work together to, you know, combat what we're facing at the moment, really.
You touched on it there with the COVID pandemic is obviously having a massive effect, sort of increasing the number of mental health cases. Just how much of an effect has the last year had in terms of mental health?
It's been hugely, to be honest though. You know, obviously we're restricted and we're encouraged to, at the moment, to reduce our visits due to obviously the pandemic and, you know, this nasty disease. But in terms of referrals, because especially in our team, we get a lot of referrals from GPs, which we act upon and then obviously follow up our support. So obviously people suffering different issues, whether, you know, because this pandemic, unfortunately, is having such an effect, whether it be, you know, circumstantial, you know, people's losing jobs or financial issues, and then certainly marital issues. And so it's having a knock-on effect, which is causing, you know, a lot of problems and illnesses for people, unfortunately. So, you know, the ratio is going up behind the scenes, and let's hope on the front line that, you know, obviously the virus is reducing, hopefully.
And in terms of, you know, you've obviously experienced it firsthand with the suspension of the Cymru Premier. It's a frustrating time to be a football manager, but other leagues and other sports as well have had it as well. But is the lack of a participation in sports at the moment, can that contribute to people suffering mentally as well?
Oh, totally. You know, I mean, obviously you go through academy sectors or, you know, even foundational teams. You know, I think, you know, exercise is key to everyone. You know, we're encouraging that, go for your daily walks. But, you know, and I understand people's frustrations, but unfortunately this pandemic, I think it's so contagious that we can't allow for it to happen. And, you know, I know obviously our government is telling us we've all got to, you know, stay home and be safe and everything. But on the flip side, like you said, it's hard to be telling young children to be doing this, that and the other. But, you know, even for adults, you know, exercise is key. But, you know, we encourage to do as much exercise maybe in the house you can do, go for as much walks as you can do. So it's not the end of be all. I think, obviously it's common sense for us not to be together as groups as much as what we can at the moment until, it reduces to a level that we're on control of it, and with the vaccinations coming in now is key. But, on the up, things are improving, especially Pembrokeshire and Carmarthenshire with us. The rates are dropping a little bit as such, but we're far from out of the woods yet.
What a great interview there from Wayne Jones. Lovely to hear from him, and such a positive and inspiring message. Dav, what did you make of speaking to him?
I think one of the main things from speaking to him was that the support is on offer. And Wayne encouraged people, especially during this time, to seek help if they need it. And obviously the amazing work that the NHS are doing, there is support, and with charities like Mind as well, there is support out there for people who are struggling, and they really should go out and seek it if they do need it.
And Nick, what did you think? How the message of the support needed is? What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's massive, because in football, when injuries occur, it can be quite depressing when you can't play good football. But with his experiences and him working with injuries and that, I think his experience has helped massively with how we can help, and the support is massively needed in a lot of football clubs.
And Alex, what did you think? And do you think more can be done to help aspiring footballers?
Yeah, I think there should be more things in place, because as Nick said, it can be quite depressing when you can't play football due to an injury, because when you are a footballer, all you want to do is play football. I feel like there probably should be a bit more support on offer for all levels of football when you can't play, because especially in the time we're in now, some people are using that as a key escape to the problems we're going through. So I think the story was perfect for what people needed to do in these times.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear that Wayne Jones was inspiring people and the great work that he's doing. So well done, Wayne. It's a thumbs up from all of us at Sports Journal USW. And Barbara, to introduce the next guest, please.
So thank you guys for a panel about the previous interview. And now we can move on the Adam's interview with Simon Thomas.
So Simon, in 2018, you were sadly diagnosed with cancer. I'd assume in that position, your primary concern would have obviously been your physical health. But when the dust settles and you sort of start to process what you've just been told, I suppose your mental health would have been affected as well.
It's very strange. It's surreal how you remember these things. And my abiding memory is actually feeling sorry for the consultant who was telling me, because I got the impression it was probably one of the first he's had to do. And he seemed very nervous. I was already completely resigned to it, because I've got a family history of the same form of cancer. My brother sadly passed away with it, so I knew all the symptoms. I knew what I had. But he was obviously terrified of having to tell me. And I always remember he said to me, what's the worst thing that you were thinking was possible today? Which is obviously the way he'd been told to tell me about it. And I just find myself laughing at it now. And I said, it's all right, mate, I know what it is. And he seemed quite relieved at that. So a lot of people have asked me about this, did you go through mental turmoil with it? And I didn't really, I suppose, partly because I was kind of resigned to it already. But I think also the fact that I suppose I took quite a sanguine approach to it, in that if you're in an aeroplane and it's about to crash, you don't get into the pilot's seat. You kind of let him do it. You just place your trust in people who know what they're doing. And that's what I did all along, really. I kind of said, right, what's next? And whatever they wanted to do to me, whatever they wanted to chop out to me, whatever they wanted to send through my body, I just said, okay, next.
Yeah, and when the wider rugby public became aware of what happened, you had loads of wishes on Twitter, and the WRU even sent you a signed jersey. I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, that was very nice surprise. I mean, I didn't sort of go public with it because I wanted sympathy or, I don't know, kind of profile. I just really did it because I wanted to say a thank you to the medical staff who'd been so fantastic, both at my surgeon, Dr. Morris, and all the people at Velindre. And it was very humbling, really, to spend a lot of time at the Velindre Cancer Care Centre, because, I was thinking, oh, this is rough, this is tough. And then after maybe one round of chemotherapy, and then I was meeting people who were doing their 5th or 6th lap, as they put it to me. So a lot of people have been through a lot worse than me. I just wanted to say thank you because, how can I put it? You expect the medical care, but it's the other parts that really strike you, which is the professionalism in terms of attitude and the way in which you're going through some difficult times, and they treat you with such dignity, and are so supportive, so encouraging, so positive. And it really did make me appreciate and value just what we have in terms of the NHS and the fantastic people who work in it. And without getting too dramatic about it, they saved my life.
And obviously when the WRU sent you the signed jersey with a note, say, like, off the players wishing you well, what was that like for your mental health? I suppose that would have been a nice boost. Yeah,
it was nice. I had some lovely messages, and cards, and it struck me as well, like, you deal with people and you deal with players, and it's a professional aspect to it, but there's a human side of it as well. And I will always be so grateful for, particularly those players who made a point of seeking me out, either sending me messages, or I just remember as well the day that Wales won the Grand Slam 2019, beat Ireland. It's actually, I think, pretty much my first day back in work, which was a nice way to return. And I just recall being sort of outside the dressing room area afterwards. And you can imagine Wales had won the Grand Slam. There were parties to go to, functions to attend. I'm sure they just wanted to get out there. But I always recall George North in particular and Lee Halfpenny just making a point of coming over and, saying they're glad to see me, best wishes, passing it on. And you realise, these are very, very decent people. And Wayne Jones sent me a lovely message, and it meant a lot. And I found it quite humbling as well that in their moment of greatest triumph, one of their greatest triumphs, they thought of another. And genuinely decent people. Yeah, and obviously everyone knows that you overcame cancer, which was fantastic. When the doctor told you had the all clear, how much of a relief was that? Again, it was the old black humor thing. Yeah. Because you build it up in your head. You never really have the all clear, because there's always the potential of it coming back. So you just go through each year, you have your checks, and you hope for the best. I had my scan a couple of weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I work on the basis of no news is probably good news, and I haven't heard anything, thankfully. But I remember going in for the big post chemotherapy scan results, and expecting some, going through everything in your head about how you'd react. It's almost like if you're waiting for the Oscar nomination, if they're good news or bad news, going, what face shall I put on? And you're expecting the doctor to come up with some big speech, and I sat down. He said, "Well, that's all fine then. Now, we'd like you to fill in these forms." I said, "What?" And it's like he said it within a second, and they said, "And that's that." I said, "Well, what happens next?" And they said, "Well, you go home now." And, it was just very surreal. I found, as I say, throughout it, in a way, I quite like the humor of the doctors, because they deal with it every day, and I suppose they have to kind of find a way through it. And I remember after I had my surgery, the doctor was explaining to me what the process happened, and essentially just explaining to those who are watching this. And they tend to take a series of lymph nodes out from around the area of the tumor, because lymph nodes, along with blood, is one of the ways that the cancer cells can travel. So they take those out to see if there's any danger of it moving elsewhere. And he explained to me that he'd taken, I think, 24 lymph nodes out from around the area of the tumor. I said, "I've had the results back," and he said, "There's cancerous cells in 4 of them." I said, "Oh, is that good? Is that bad?" He said, "It's better than 5." And I thought at that point, like, oh, it's probably true. I might as well get the sort of basics of it. And it's a job for them, isn't it? And to be honest, I think the more kind of matter of fact they were about it, the better I found it, and I did develop a very dark sense of humor around the whole thing, I must admit. And then final question from me.
So obviously you've had the all clear. You said you have your checkups, but does it still like weigh in the back of your mind, or do you just think, you just get on with life?
No, I wouldn't say it weighs in the mind. I mean, I think whenever you have your checkup, you sort of hope for the best. But as I said, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
There is absolutely nothing you can do about it. You try and stay as healthy as you can, but I mean, that's tied in with COVID as much as anything. I've lost a couple of stone in weight this year because I'm very aware that, and that's obviously added a different dimension to it because having had chemotherapy, my immune system is suppressed. So it was this kind of feeling, well, I've got through cancer so far, and now this bloody thing has come along, COVID, which could grab me. So I've been part of the shielding group with that. So that's added a new kind of mental dimension to it, really. And I've actually, to be honest, I've been more worried and concerned about getting COVID and pegging it from that than from cancer, because that's a very prescient and immediate thing. And so I've actually been out of the house since last March. And been part of the shielding group, which has meant I did for a little period, have a lovely parcel weekly from the Cardiff Council, complete with wagon wheels, which I hadn't seen since about 1977, so that was quite nice. But no, you just have to get on with it. And I don't mind talking about it because I think I have seen other people during my travels who clearly have really struggled with it mentally. Which is understandable. Different people deal in different ways, and that's why I'm quite happy to talk about it. But there was a guy, just briefly, who was kind of an inspiration for me. It was a guy called Clive Rowlands, who was captain of Wales in the 1960s, coach of Wales in the 1970s during the golden era, and he had the same as me, bowel cancer. And I always remember him telling me, if England couldn't beat I'm not going to let this thing beat me, He and I talked to him about it prior to myself knowing about it, but knowing I had a family history, his attitude and his determination. I had toured with him a few times, and he was determined that the damn thing was not going to beat him. And I suppose anytime I did have a slight kind of wobble, I would think of Clive, because I tell you what, Clive could. You can understand why Clive was such a successful Wales coach. I always remember before one Wales game out in France, I won't say who it was, but one of my colleagues had indulged and imbibed a little bit too much the night before and was struggling in the media room toilets and wasn't feeling very well at all. And then Clive was there patting him on the back and he was going, "Come on, boy, get it up, do it for Wales, do it for Wales." And that was Clive, and he was very much an inspiration. So, and I guess that's why I try and talk about it, because there's always hope.
Lovely to hear that interview from you, Ad, and speak to Simon Thomas, who's sort of the person behind the stories, really. And he's got a fantastic story of his own. And it's brilliant to hear that he's doing well and on the mend. So fair play, Simon. We're all happy for you here and brilliant to see you back on the end. How was the interview, Ad?
Yeah, obviously it was really interesting to interview a journalist. I suppose he's probably done 1,000 interviews, but it's not often he gets interviewed. So yeah, it was nice to speak to him. Nice to see he's doing well now. He spoke in detail about what he went through in 2018 when he was sadly diagnosed with cancer. And yeah, he just spoke about how he bounced back and how he's living now. He's been shielding due to COVID, so he spoke about that. And yeah, it's just good to see that he survived cancer and now he's doing his best to stay safe in these difficult times.
Yeah, it was an inspirational story, and I guess it brings a bit more normality, and the fact that he's someone in an everyday job, really, and not just like a sports star like everyone else. Calvin, what did you make of the interview, and how inspiring was it?
Yeah, I think it was really inspiring. Just the fact that, he had the ability to overcome such a big obstacle in his life, and just to do it how he did it, and now to just bounce back in a way and just do his normal job again and interview and all that. I think it's just really inspirational, and he's a real role model to, I think, all of us aspiring journalists.
Yeah, Simon's a lovely bloke and a fantastic journalist.
And yeah, it's great seeing, people have gone through so many different things in the sporting world, but cancer is a real life issue. And it can seriously detriment not only you physically but mentally as well, and the people around you. So as we've carried on saying, you know, have that bounce back ability that Simon has, see how well he's doing today is really, really inspirational for all of us.
And obviously sport is always there for people, and it's obviously good for Simon that he had that arm of sport. I know there was an article on Expo about him getting a signed Wales jersey from the Welsh squad, and sport always helps people through their toughest times, and I think that's one of the main things as well.
Definitely.
And that's a wrap for us here then. Thank you all for joining us and taking a look at some of the bounce back stories we've had and some of our really inspiring guests. It's been an absolute pleasure.